Aiden Cross had never imagined that one mission could change everything. He had been stationed on the remote research outpost near the edge of the galaxy for months, collecting rare energy samples from unstable star systems. Each day was long, lonely, and exhausting. The cold metal halls of the outpost echoed with emptiness, and even the voice recordings from his team could not fill the quiet. He had spent weeks monitoring energy fluctuations, studying strange cosmic waves that humans barely understood. Every measurement, every calculation was important. Every decision could mean life or death, but nothing had prepared him for the accident that was about to happen. The planet beneath the outpost was jagged and barren. Winds whipped over the surface with a strength that could knock a person off their feet. The ground was hard and sharp, covered with strange black rocks that reflected the dim light of the dying star overhead. Aiden had been carrying samples to the shuttle when a sudden tremor shook the platform. Alarms blared, echoing through the narrow corridors, and the platform itself tilted dangerously. Aiden tried to regain balance, but the weight of the containers combined with the trembling floor sent him stumbling. He fell hard, his head striking the ground, and the world went black. Time lost meaning as he lay there. Pain throbbed in his skull, but it was nothing compared to the overwhelming darkness pressing against his mind. He tried to call for help, but his voice was weak, and the communication devices had been damaged in the tremor. He was alone. Hours passed, or maybe only minutes. He could not tell. The cold gnawed at him, and his vision flickered like a dying star. It seemed as if the planet itself wanted to swallow him whole. He drifted in and out of consciousness, unable to move, unable to think clearly. Every breath felt heavy, every heartbeat slow and labored. He had survived dangerous missions before, but this felt different. He felt small, fragile, and utterly alone. Then, just when hope seemed lost, he sensed a presence. It was not human. It did not feel like the wind or the shadows. It was a warmth, a calm, a force that filled the empty space around him. A shadow fell over his eyes, and he squinted against a light that was brighter than the sun, but soft and golden. A figure stood above him, taller than any human he had ever seen, with skin that shimmered like liquid metal. The figure's eyes glowed with an intelligence and depth that made his heart skip. He could not look away. Even in his weak state, he felt something he had never felt before. A connection, a recognition, a pull toward this being. The figure spoke, but not in words Aiden could hear. Instead, the voice entered his mind directly, calm and commanding. You are far from your world. You are fragile, yet strong in ways I have not seen before. You will not die here. Bad. Aiden tried to speak, but his mouth would not form words. The figure reached out, a hand that seemed both delicate and impossibly powerful. He felt her touch as warmth spreading through his body, easing the pain, bringing clarity. In that moment he realized he had been found, not by another human, not by chance, but by something far greater, something that existed beyond the stars he had been studying, beyond the dangers he had been facing. A being who saw him, truly saw him, in a way no one else ever had. He tried to understand what was happening. His mind, clouded by pain and exhaustion, struggled to comprehend the reality. The figure moved with grace, lifting him effortlessly. He felt weightless, as if gravity itself had been suspended. The cold winds and sharp rocks of the planet faded away, replaced by a sense of safety he had never known. He realized he was being carried, but not like a prisoner or a cargo. He was being rescued, and yet, even in this rescue, there was a command in the way she moved, a certainty that this was her world, her rules, and he was now part of them. The journey was silent, yet full of sensation. The air changed around him, warm and soft, carrying a faint hum that vibrated in his chest. He saw glimpses of the landscape below, alien formations unlike anything he had ever studied. Towering spires of crystal and metal rose from the ground, glowing faintly with inner light. Rivers of liquid energy flowed in patterns that defied physics, yet were beautiful beyond imagination. The planet seemed alive, but it was not alive in a way humans could understand. It was alive in a way that acknowledged him, that had allowed him to survive until now. When they finally stopped, Aiden realized he was standing in a space that defied human architecture. The walls around him glowed softly, shaped like living forms rather than constructed materials. The ceilings were impossibly high, vanishing into shadows that pulsed with light. Other beings moved around, tall, slender, and shimmering, yet completely alien. They did not notice him in the same way he was aware of them. It was as if he existed in a separate layer of reality, one specifically reserved for him by the figure who had found him. The figure turned toward him, and he finally noticed the details he had only glimpsed before. Her features were regal, symmetrical, in ways that seemed both natural and perfected. Her eyes glowed with colors he could not name, shifting like liquid jewels. Her skin reflected the light, giving the impression of both armor and flesh, as if she was prepared for battle and elegance simultaneously. Even her movements carried authority, not just over her world, but over the flow of life itself. He realized she was a queen, not in the ceremonial sense, but in the absolute sense, a ruler who commanded respect merely by being present. "You are human," she said again, this time directly in words he could understand, though still resonating in his mind. "You are fragile. You are strong. You are different." Aiden's chest tightened. The words were simple, yet filled with weight. She continued, "I claim you not as a prisoner, but as one who has potential. Your survival here is no accident."
"You have qualities I value." He wanted to speak, to protest, to explain that he did not belong in this place, but the words died on his lips.
Somehow, he understood that his consent was already assumed. This was not cruelty, nor was it malice. It was recognition. She had seen him, and in that vision, she had decided that he was important. Aiden's mind raced. Who was she? What did she want from him? Could he trust her? And yet, even as questions flooded his thoughts, he could feel a strange calm. The pain that had filled his body, the fear that had consumed him on the planet below, had been replaced by clarity. He was still human, still fragile, still alone in the galaxy, but he had been noticed by something far greater than himself, and in that attention he sensed opportunity. The Queen led him deeper into the structure. The beings around them moved with fluid precision, their forms alien and elegant. They communicated without words, a network of gestures, signals, and subtle energy flows. Aiden struggled to comprehend, but he tried. He tried to observe, to learn, to understand. Every detail mattered. Every movement told a story, and he was aware that each choice he made could determine whether he belonged here or not. Hours, or perhaps moments, passed in this strange world. The Queen did not rush him, but neither did she offer comfort in ways humans might expect. Instead, she allowed him to acclimate, to feel the reality of his situation, and in this time, Aiden realized something profound. Survival was no longer about skill, strength, or training. Survival was about understanding, adaptation, and recognition of what was important in this new context. The traits humans considered ordinary, courage, curiosity, resilience, were extraordinary here. At one point, she stopped before a vast window that looked out onto the planet below. From this vantage, Aiden could see the chaos he had survived. Jagged mountains, glowing rivers of energy, and the remnants of the tremor that had nearly killed him. The Queen's presence beside him made the scale of the world feel different. He realized that he had been small, almost insignificant, but now he was being seen. Being seen by her meant that he mattered. That realization settled in his chest with unexpected weight. "You have endured what most could not," she said softly, and Aiden felt the words echo within him. That endurance is rare. That courage is valuable. That spirit is human. And in this galaxy, that is something few possess. Aiden felt a mixture of pride and fear. Pride because he had survived, because he had mattered enough to be claimed. Fear because the claim implied responsibility, expectation, and a future he could not yet imagine. He wanted to ask her name, to understand the full depth of her world, but words seemed trivial compared to the reality surrounding him. She had already demonstrated power beyond comprehension, a presence beyond imagination, and a mind that moved faster than any human's. To question her was natural, yet he also understood that resistance was meaningless. This was a universe governed by forces far older, far wiser, and far more capable than him. As the sun set on the distant horizon of the alien planet, the glow of the dying star cast soft light into the vast hall. Aiden felt the exhaustion of months, the terror of near death, and the awe of encountering something beyond comprehension. He had been found, claimed, and set upon a path that no human could have foreseen, and in that moment he realized that life as he knew it was over. Not destroyed, but transformed. The Queen turned toward him once more, her glowing eyes fixed on his face. "Rest now," she commanded gently. "You will need strength for what comes next. The galaxy has recognized you, as have I. Tomorrow, you begin your path." Aiden nodded, though he was unsure if he fully understood. Sleep overtook him, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, he felt secure, as if the storm of the galaxy had paused and he existed in a pocket of safety carved out by her will. Even in sleep, his mind was restless. Thoughts of humanity, of his homeworld, of the missions he had undertaken, and the life he had left behind, all mixed with visions of towering halls, glowing beings in the Queen's presence. He sensed the weight of choice ahead, the demands of survival in this new realm, and the challenge of proving himself worthy. But deep within him, a spark of human determination ignited. He had survived countless dangers before, and he would not falter now. If humanity was to endure, he would endure. If courage was to matter, he would embody it. As the hours passed, the alien Queen watched silently. Her presence was both protective and evaluative. She had claimed him, not for herself alone, but for the promise she saw within him. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and wonders beyond imagination, and she recognized in this fragile human a potential that could influence outcomes far beyond what he could comprehend. She did not rush him. She allowed him the space to rest, to recover, to awaken fully to the reality of the universe he had been thrust into. And so, as the alien night stretched across the strange planet, Aiden Cross slept under the watchful eyes of a queen whose power and vision dwarfed the human mind. And yet, in her claim, he began to understand that he had not been taken. He had been chosen. Aiden awoke to a world that seemed alive in every sense. The vast hall in which he had been placed shimmered softly, as if breathing. Light flowed across the walls in subtle currents, and the floor under his feet seemed to respond to his movements. For a moment he thought he was dreaming, but the residual pain in his head reminded him that this was very real. He tried to move, and found himself stronger than he expected, though his body still ached from the fall. The Queen stood nearby, observing him. Her presence was calm but commanding, a balance of gentleness and authority that made Aiden aware of every breath, every heartbeat. "You have slept well," she said, her voice echoing not just in his ears but directly in his mind, carrying meaning beyond words. "Your strength is intact, but your understanding must grow. Today you learn your place here, not as a subject, but as one who can change the course of many lives."
Aiden swallowed hard. He wanted to speak, to ask questions, but his voice caught in his throat.
Instead, he nodded. Somehow, the Queen understood the gesture. She moved gracefully across the hall, her steps leaving a faint trace of light behind her. "Follow me," she commanded, and he obeyed, stepping carefully across the glowing floor. They moved through corridors that twisted and curved in ways that defied human architecture. The walls shimmered like liquid, and soft hums of energy vibrated through the air. Other beings moved around them, taller than humans, with limbs that seemed elongated yet purposeful. They did not speak in words, but Aiden sensed their awareness. It was as if every life form in this place existed on a higher plane of perception, communicating in ways humans could barely imagine. Finally, they arrived at a chamber that opened into a wide circular space. The floor was smooth and luminous, and strange symbols glowed faintly in patterns across the surface. The Queen motioned for him to stand in the center. "This is your first trial," she said, "not of strength, but of mind and spirit. You will learn to perceive, to adapt, and to survive in ways your people have never imagined." Aiden's heart pounded. He had trained in many environments: desert, Arctic, space, but nothing had prepared him for this. The symbols on the floor shifted as he watched, forming patterns that seemed to move independently. A hum rose in the chamber, resonating with his chest. He realized he could feel the energy flowing through the room, not as heat or pressure, but as understanding. Somehow, the symbols were communicating with him. The Queen's voice entered his mind again. "Focus. Do not resist.
Observe. Learn."
Aiden closed his eyes and tried to center himself. He focused on the flow of the symbols, their subtle pulses and shifts. Slowly, he began to recognize patterns, shapes repeated in cycles, forming sequences that suggested movement, direction, and purpose. Each time he noticed a pattern, the hum in the chamber responded, growing louder or softer, affirming his perception. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. He could not tell. Time in this place seemed fluid. The trial pushed him to the edge of his understanding. He stumbled, misinterpreted sequences, and felt waves of frustration. But each time he faltered, the Queen's presence remained, steady and patient. "Do not fear mistakes," she said. "Your human mind sees differently. That difference is your strength." Aiden began to notice the truth in her words. While the Zolari communicated and perceived with telepathy and energy flows, his human mind worked in unexpected ways. He saw connections they might miss, choices they might overlook. Using his intuition, he began to anticipate patterns, moving through the sequences with increasing confidence. The symbols seemed to respond to his awareness, rearranging, challenging, and rewarding him in a cycle that was exhausting and exhilarating at the same time. After what felt like days, the Queen finally spoke in words that were fully audible to him.
"You have done well. You perceive the flow of life here differently, and that difference is valuable."
But understanding is only the first step. You must act upon it. Knowledge without application is meaningless. Before he could respond, the floor beneath him shifted. Platforms rose and rotated, forming a complex maze. Holographic projections appeared, simulating dangers and challenges he could barely recognize. Aiden realized that this was another trial, one of adaptability and action. He had learned to read patterns, but now he needed to use that knowledge in real time. The first challenge was a series of energy barriers that pulsed unpredictably. Each barrier shifted in timing and intensity. Human reflexes alone would not suffice. Aiden studied the sequences, predicting the shifts, and moved with precision. Sometimes he stumbled, narrowly avoiding injury. Other times he anticipated perfectly, flowing through the barriers, as if guided by instinct. The Queen observed silently, occasionally offering subtle hints, never interference. Next came a simulation of alien predators, towering creatures that moved with incredible speed and intelligence. They were holograms, but the energy pulses they emitted were real enough to trigger defensive responses in Aiden's nervous system. He ducked, dodged, and used the environment creatively, leveraging cover, timing, and his own intuition. He realized that his human unpredictability gave him an edge. Whereas Zolari might calculate and follow pattern, he acted instinctively, improvising in ways that were hard to foresee. Hours turned into an extended exercise of endurance, perception, and problem-solving. Aiden's body ached, but his mind sharpened. He began to see patterns not only in the symbols and barriers, but in the world around him. Energy flows, spatial configurations, even the subtle vibrations in the air conveyed information. The alien world was not just alien. It was a system of interrelated patterns, and he was learning to read it. Finally, the trials paused. Aiden collapsed to the floor, exhausted, sweat slicking his forehead, muscles trembling. The Queen knelt beside him, her glowing eyes softening. You have passed the first steps. Not because you are perfect, but because you adapt, learn, and endure. That is the essence of your humanity. It is rare, it is powerful, and it is needed. He looked at her, breath ragged, heart pounding. Why me? He asked, voice barely more than a whisper. Why choose a human? I am fragile. I am weak compared to your people. The Queen's gaze held him. You are human, she said. That is exactly why humans survive in ways others cannot. You find hope when it is hidden. You create solutions where none exist. You endure against impossible odds. That spirit is not weakness. It is strength. And in the coming trials, strength alone will not be enough. You will need your human heart, your courage, and your will.
Aiden felt a swell of determination. He realized that the trials were more than tests. They were a training ground, a way to prepare him for a role he did not yet fully understand.
He had survived the fall, been claimed by a being far beyond human comprehension, and now he was learning to navigate a civilization that operated on rules entirely foreign to him. And yet, in all this, he felt a sense of purpose. Over the next days, he trained relentlessly. He learned to interact with the Zolari technology, devices that responded to thought and energy, rather than touch. He discovered how to move through the environment efficiently, reading subtle cues in the flow of energy around him. He began to understand the language of the Zolari, not words, but patterns, pulses, and resonance. Slowly he could communicate. Not perfectly, but enough to convey intent and understand responses. The Queen observed every step, sometimes intervening subtly, sometimes allowing him to struggle. She introduced him to other humans who had been integrated into her empire. Rare cases like him who had survived and adapted. Their guidance helped him, but also reminded him that humanity was different. Humans thought differently, acted differently, and that difference could be either an advantage or a weakness. He realized that he could not become like the Zolari entirely. He needed to retain his human perspective. During one session, the Queen presented a simulated crisis. An energy core was destabilizing, threatening to destroy an entire sector. Aiden was tasked with stabilizing it, using both his intuition and newly learned technology. The simulation was intense, complex, and unforgiving. Every decision mattered. He hesitated, made small errors, and adjusted quickly. He improvised solutions that the Zolari simulation did not anticipate, using human logic in ways that were unconventional, but effective. When the simulation ended, the Queen nodded. You acted not as a Zolari, but as a human, and that is why you succeeded. Through these experiences, Aiden began to understand something profound. His value was not in mimicking the alien species around him, but in embracing what made him human. Curiosity, creativity, courage, empathy, and resilience. These were traits that no alien training could replicate. He began to see that his survival, his usefulness, and perhaps the future of humanity in the galaxy depended on maintaining that essence, while learning to operate in this advanced civilization. Despite the intensity of his training, moments of wonder remained. He explored the halls of the Queen's citadel, marveled at the flowing architecture, and observed the complex interactions of beings and technology. He realized that the Zalari were not just advanced, they were harmonious. Every action, every movement, every choice seemed interconnected, and yet they had overlooked something humans had in abundance: adaptability and unpredictability. He began to understand that his claim by the Queen was not a mere whim. It was a recognition of the potential to bridge gaps, to influence outcomes, and perhaps to save lives in ways no alien mind could foresee. As days turned into cycles, Aiden became stronger, more confident, and more aware of the galaxy beyond. But he also felt the weight of responsibility. The Queen's claim was not a casual act. It was a recognition of his potential. He was no longer just a human in an alien world. He was a participant in events that could shape the future. And every decision, every step, carried consequences far beyond his own survival. By the end of his first training cycle, Aiden sat alone in the chamber, reflecting on all he had learned. The trials had been grueling, the lessons profound, and the challenges far beyond what he had imagined. Yet through exhaustion and struggle, he had discovered something vital. Humanity had a place here, not as a weak species, but as one with unique strengths. And in this realization, he found determination. He would adapt, he would survive, and he would prove that human spirit could endure and thrive, even in the heart of an alien empire. Aiden Cross had spent days adjusting to the strange rhythm of the Zalari world. The trials had tested his mind, his endurance, and his ability to adapt. Now he was faced with something entirely new: the social and political currents of an alien civilization. The Queen had warned him that survival here was not just about strength or intelligence. It was also about understanding intentions, motivations, and alliances. He had to navigate a world that operated on principles far beyond human comprehension. The first encounter was with the Council of the Zalari Elite, a group of beings older and more powerful than he could imagine. Their eyes glowed with subtle light, and their movements were precise, almost ceremonial. They spoke in a combination of telepathic resonance and subtle gestures. Aiden felt the weight of their scrutiny immediately. These were the ones who had doubted the Queen's choice to claim a human. Every flicker of doubt, every judgment, seemed to hang in the air, directed at him without words. He tried to stand tall, to project confidence, but inside, he felt the familiar churn of fear. Humans were small and fragile compared to these beings. He had survived the planet, the trials, and the simulations. But this was different. This was a test of his mind and spirit, and the consequences were less predictable. The Queen stood beside him, calm and silent, giving nothing away. Aiden realized that he was alone in this moment. His only tools were his wits, his instincts, and the human traits that had brought him this far. The council began their questioning, not in words, but through thought and perception. Aiden felt ideas pushed into his mind, challenges and hypotheticals that tested logic, morality, and intuition. They probed his understanding of strategy, survival, and leadership. They asked him to anticipate scenarios, to predict outcomes, to solve problems that had no obvious solutions. Every answer he gave was analyzed, every hesitation noted. He could feel their judgments pressing against him, but he forced himself to focus. He relied on what the Queen had taught him during the trials. Observe carefully, trust your instincts, and embrace what makes you human. When the Council projected a scenario of a collapsing energy nexus threatening multiple colonies, he suggested an unconventional approach. Rather than rely solely on the technology and rigid protocols of the Zalari, he proposed leveraging human unpredictability and improvisation to redirect the energy flows. Safely, there was silence, a pause that stretched unbearably long. Then, a subtle glow spread across the eyes of one council member, a sign of approval. Others remained impassive, but Aiden could feel that he had begun to make an impression. After the meeting, he was led to a smaller chamber, away from the scrutiny of the council. The Queen appeared, her expression softening. "You have done well," she said. "You are beginning to understand that human ingenuity is not a weakness here. It is rare, valuable, and necessary. Do not forget that your role is not just to survive, but to influence. The galaxy does not bend to those who follow blindly. It responds to those who see differently." Aiden nodded, feeling the weight of her words. Influence was a strange concept for him. On Earth, he had led teams and made decisions, but the scale here was different. He was not only responsible for himself, but potentially for countless lives and the future of entire civilizations. The responsibility was heavy, but he felt a spark of determination. Humans had always survived against overwhelming odds. Perhaps this was the greatest test of all: to survive, not by strength alone, but by using the unique qualities of his species. Over the following weeks, Aiden's routine became a balance of learning, observation, and discreet action. He trained with alien technology, participated in simulations of planetary management, and continued exercises in perception and intuition. He also studied the Jalari social networks, watching interactions, noting alliances and tensions, and observing how information moved through their society. He realized that even in a civilization as advanced as this, politics and power dynamics existed. Some Zalarai elites were suspicious of him, viewing a human as an anomaly, while others were curious, intrigued by his different perspective. One day, the Queen summoned him to the observation deck, a massive platform overlooking the galaxy. Stars stretched endlessly in every direction, nebulae glowing in vivid colors, planets spinning in silence. "What you see is only part of the universe," she said. "There is conflict, imbalance, and danger everywhere. And yet, there is also opportunity. Your presence here is not accidental. You have the potential to act where others might hesitate, to see possibilities that remain hidden. But that potential comes with risk." Aiden looked out, feeling the immensity of what she said. Humanity was fragile, yes, but it had qualities that could tip the balance in unimaginable ways. He had always known humans were adaptable, resourceful, and resilient, but seeing the galaxy from this vantage made it clear just how rare and valuable those traits could be. His next challenge came unexpectedly. A Zalari fleet, previously considered loyal to the Queen, began to act unpredictably, ignoring orders and veering into contested regions of space. The Council debated strategies, some advocating forceful intervention, others caution, but no consensus emerged. The Queen turned to Aiden.
"Observe and advise," she instructed. "Use your perspective."
See what others cannot. Aiden studied the reports, the movement patterns, and the communications intercepted from the fleet. He noticed subtle anomalies that the Zalari missed, slight deviations in energy signatures, timing discrepancies, and unusual formations. He realized the fleet was being influenced by an external agent, perhaps a rival species or internal faction. His suggestion was unorthodox. Rather than confront with force, he proposed using deception and misdirection, exploiting the fleet's assumptions to guide them back without direct confrontation. The Council was skeptical. Humans rarely understood the complexities of alien strategy, they thought. Yet, when the plan was implemented, it succeeded flawlessly. The fleet returned without violence, and the Queen's trust in him grew. She had seen his ability to combine human intuition with Zalari understanding. Others in the Council began to take notice as well, some with grudging respect, others with cautious curiosity. Despite these successes, Aiden also faced personal struggles. He missed Earth, his home, and the familiar faces of his team. The isolation of space, the vastness of the galaxy, and the alien nature of the Zalari made loneliness a constant companion. Yet he reminded himself that he had been chosen for this, not because it was easy, but because he possessed qualities that mattered. Each challenge, each trial, each interaction reinforced the truth. His humanity was his strength. One evening, as he wandered the corridors, he encountered a small group of Zalari children, beings still learning to navigate their own abilities. They watched him with curiosity, fascinated by his human form. He knelt to greet them, feeling a warmth he had not anticipated. They could not speak in words yet, but he communicated through gestures and subtle energy signals. He realized that connection, empathy, and understanding transcended species. The same qualities that made humans fragile also allowed them to form bonds, to influence, and to inspire. "You understand," she said, "that leadership is more than command. It is connection. It is the ability to guide without dominating, to influence without force. That is why you are here. That is why you were chosen." Days turned into cycles, and Aiden continued to grow in skill and confidence. He learned to anticipate challenges, to navigate social complexities, and to use his human traits as tools in a world that often valued only precision and calculation. He became a bridge, a rare point of contact between humans and Jalari, able to see what neither could fully perceive alone. But challenges were never far away. Reports arrived of a distant system under threat from unknown forces. The Queen consulted with him, asking for insight. Aiden studied the information carefully. Using logic, intuition, and his human capacity for creative problem-solving, he identified a solution that others overlooked. The response plan he proposed prevented widespread destruction and saved countless lives, both human and Zalari. The Queen's approval was evident, but, more importantly, others began to see him as more than a human novelty. He had proven his value in action, not just theory. Through all these trials, Aiden learned a vital truth. In a galaxy filled with powerful civilizations, technology, and intelligence, humanity's greatest strength was its unpredictability, its resilience, and its spirit. The Queen had claimed him, not to possess him, but to recognize and nurture that potential. Every challenge he faced, every success he achieved, reinforced the idea that humans were not weak, not insignificant, and not irrelevant. They were capable of shaping events on a scale even the most powerful beings might underestimate. By the end of his third cycle, Aiden felt a profound sense of purpose. He had adapted to the alien world, navigated its trials, and begun to carve a place for himself, not just as a survivor, but as a contributor, an influencer, and a bridge between species. The Queen had been right. His humanity was his greatest asset, and he would need every ounce of courage, creativity, and resilience in the trials yet to come. As he looked out into the galaxy from the observation deck, Aiden understood that his journey had only just begun. He had survived the fall, earned the Queen's attention, navigated alien trials, and proven the value of his human perspective. But the galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and filled with dangers and opportunities alike. He knew that the next phase of his journey would demand even more. Courage under pressure, wisdom in action, and the relentless determination that had defined humanity since its first steps into the stars. And for the first time, Aiden Cross felt not fear, but anticipation. The universe had taken notice of humanity through him, and he was ready to rise to the challenge. Aiden Cross had learned much in the weeks since the Queen had claimed him. He had endured trials, mastered alien technology, navigated the complex social and political networks of the Zalari, and proven that human intuition and resilience could match even the most advanced alien minds. Yet nothing had prepared him for what came next. Reports had arrived from the outer edges of Zalari space. A rogue faction of alien ships unlike any Aiden had studied was moving with precision and deadly intent. Their energy signatures were chaotic yet coordinated, suggesting a level of intelligence and strategy that rivaled the Zalari themselves. The council debated courses of action, but divisions were deep. Some argued for immediate attack, others urged caution. The Queen turned to Aiden, her glowing eyes fixated on him.
"We will need your perspective," she said. "The galaxy listens to those who see what others cannot." Aiden felt the familiar rush of anticipation and fear.
The stakes had never been higher. Lives, planets, and the delicate balance of the galaxy hung on decisions that had to be made quickly. He studied the data with a sharp mind, looking for patterns, anomalies, anything that might reveal the rogue fleet's intentions. Slowly, he began to see a sequence, a subtle rhythm in their approach, a predictable unpredictability. He realized that they were not acting randomly. They were testing, probing, and seeking weaknesses. He presented his analysis to the council. "They expect us to respond in predictable ways," he said. "If we anticipate their moves, we can guide them without direct conflict. Force should be a last resort. Use misdirection, create uncertainty, and leverage what they assume about us against them." The council murmured, skeptical at first, but the Queen's approval was clear. "Proceed as you suggest," she commanded. The preparations began immediately. Aiden coordinated with Zalari engineers and strategists, integrating human improvisation with alien precision. Holographic simulations were run, energy shields calibrated, and fleet formations adjusted. Aiden noticed subtle resistance from some Jalari commanders. They doubted that a human's intuition could influence such a large-scale operation. But he ignored their skepticism, relying on the training, trials, and lessons he had absorbed over the past cycles. When the rogue fleet arrived, the tension was palpable. Massive ships, sleek and deadly, moved through space with a grace and speed that seemed impossible. Their weapons glowed ominously, energy pulses crackling across the void. The Zalari fleet positioned itself defensively, awaiting the first attack. Aiden watched, heart pounding, sensing the rhythm of the rogue ships, the flow of energy in their weapons, the pattern of their maneuvers. He directed subtle adjustments, using both technology and intuition to manipulate the battlefield. The first engagement began. Energy beams sliced through space, shields flaring with each hit. The Zalari moved with efficiency, but Aiden's suggestions disrupted the expectations of the rogue commanders. Ships diverted into false paths, attacks were anticipated and countered, and chaos began to spread among the enemy ranks. He realized that human unpredictability, acting without strict adherence to protocol, was giving them the edge. Where the Zalari calculated and planned, he improvised and adapted, exploiting gaps that even advanced alien minds did not anticipate. The battle raged for hours. Aiden remained focused, issuing orders, making split-second decisions, and reading the flow of energy like a conductor reading music. He noticed one rogue ship preparing a massive energy discharge aimed at the central fleet. Using his understanding of both human and Jalari tactics, he devised a plan, a feint that would lure the ship into a trap, redirecting its attack safely into the void. The maneuver was risky. Any miscalculation could mean catastrophic loss. Yet he acted with confidence, trusting his instincts. The plan succeeded perfectly. The rogue ship's energy discharge dissipated harmlessly, and the enemy formation faltered. The tide of the battle shifted. Aiden continued to exploit patterns, predict movements, and guide the Zalari fleet with a combination of intuition and strategy. Other humans who had joined the Queen's empire worked alongside him, assisting in communications, energy redirection, and tactical decisions. Together, they demonstrated that humanity, though small in number, could influence events on a galactic scale when combined with ingenuity, courage, and resilience. Finally, the rogue fleet retreated, recognizing that they had underestimated the human element. The battle was won, not through sheer power, but through insight, adaptability, and the courage to act when others hesitated. The Queen observed the aftermath, her expression calm yet approving. She approached Aiden, her presence filling the observation chamber like light. "You have done what few could achieve," she said. "Not through force, not through technology alone, but through your humanity. You have proven that your species has a place among the stars, and that your spirit can shape events far beyond your world." Aiden felt a mixture of relief, pride, and exhaustion. He had survived countless challenges, but this victory was different. It was not just personal. It was a triumph for humanity itself. He realized that the Queen's claim was never about possession. It was recognition. Recognition that humans, with all their flaws and limitations, had qualities that could change the course of history. In the days that followed, Aiden continued to work alongside the Queen and the Council. He helped repair damaged systems, mediate conflicts among Jalari factions, and train humans newly integrated. into the Empire. His influence grew, not as a ruler, but as a bridge between species. Where the Jalari relied on precision, humans brought creativity. Where the Solari saw patterns, humans added intuition. Together, the strengths of both species created harmony and progress. Despite his successes, Aiden remained grounded. He never forgot the fragility of his species, the long history of survival against impossible odds, and the weight of responsibility he now carried. He spent time reflecting on the journey that had brought him here, from a single fall on a barren planet to standing at the center of galactic events. Each challenge had tested him, each trial had refined him, and each success had reinforced the truth he had always known. Humanity's strength was not in technology alone, nor in brute force, but in adaptability, courage, and spirit. The Queen summoned him one evening to the central platform of the Citadel. The stars stretched endlessly around them, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the challenges yet to come. She looked at him with eyes that glowed like twin suns.
"You have exceeded expectations," she said. "The galaxy is not a place for the timid, yet your human qualities have shifted the balance."
Others will watch, some with curiosity, others with fear. But your actions have shown that humanity cannot be ignored. Aiden understood the depth of her words. The rogue fleet was only one of many threats. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and filled with challenges that would test every skill, every decision, and every ounce of courage. Yet he felt ready, not because he was invincible, but because he had learned to trust his instincts, embrace his human strengths, and act decisively in the face of uncertainty. As the weeks passed, Aiden continued to integrate further into Zalari society. He learned more about their culture, their history, and their philosophy. He discovered that while their technology and abilities were advanced, they lacked the adaptability and unpredictability that humans naturally possessed. His presence, once questioned, became respected. He advised on fleet movements, planetary management, and strategic decisions. In every instance, he relied on what made him human: creativity, empathy, courage, and resilience. The Queen observed him throughout, sometimes offering guidance, other times allowing him to act independently. Her claim over him had been the beginning, but now it became a partnership. She recognized his contributions, and he began to understand his own role, not as a subject, not as a pawn, but as a participant shaping the galaxy's future. Finally, a message arrived from a human colony on a distant planet. They were struggling against a natural disaster, a massive storm system that threatened to destroy settlements and lives. The Zalari technology could assist, but coordination across the vast distance was complex. Aiden took charge, coordinating human and Zalari efforts, predicting the storm's movements, and directing resources efficiently. The operation was successful, saving thousands of lives. For the first time, he realized the full extent of what a human mind, combined with alien resources, could accomplish. In the quiet aftermath, he stood with the Queen on the observation platform, looking out at the galaxy. Stars twinkled in the distance, each one a reminder of the endless possibilities and challenges. "You have done more than survive," she said. "You have shown that humanity has a place among the stars, not as weak observers, but as active participants, shaping destiny." Aiden felt a swell of pride, tempered by humility. He knew the challenges would continue, that dangers lurked beyond the visible horizon, and that the galaxy's complexity was far from fully revealed. Yet he also knew that humanity's spirit, embodied in him and others who would follow, could make a difference. They were small, fragile, and imperfect, but their courage, creativity, and determination were forces the galaxy could not ignore. As he stood there, the weight of the Queen's claim transformed from burden to honor. She had not taken him. She had recognized him. And in that recognition, Aiden understood his purpose: to survive, to learn, to lead, and to show that humanity, though simple in form, was capable of greatness on a galactic scale. The stars stretched endlessly before him, and for the first time, Aiden Cross felt not fear, but resolve. The universe was vast, mysterious, and dangerous, but it was also full of opportunity. Humanity had a role to play, and he would ensure that their light, fragile yet brilliant, would shine across the galaxy. With the Queen at his side and the lessons of his trials in his mind, Aiden looked forward, ready to face the challenges that awaited. The galaxy had witnessed his courage, his ingenuity, and his humanity. And in turn, he had witnessed the power of possibility. Proof that even a single human could shape the destiny of worlds. Aiden understood that this was only the beginning. Greater trials, greater responsibilities, and greater discoveries awaited him. But now he was no longer simply a human lost on a strange world. He was a bridge, a symbol, and a force. The Queen had claimed him, but he had claimed his own place in the galaxy. Humanity had survived, endured, and proven its worth, not by conquest, but by spirit, ingenuity, and courage. As the first light of a distant star illuminated the platform, Aiden felt hope. He had fallen, been found, been tested, and had risen, and he knew without doubt that humanity's journey among the stars had only just begun.